We've just opened up the TurboMass software for the first time, and you might have a few questions about what these three windows are, these icons at the top, what do these two names mean, where's my GC, why do I have three red lights on? We're going to try to address a few of these issues right now in this quick introduction of the TurboMass main screen. The top center screen is your sample list. And this can be seen, you can see what sample list is open by looking in the top left-hand corner where it says default.spl. That means the default sample list is open, and that default sample list is part of the default project. So looking to the right of TurboMass, you see default. That's the project name. Within that project, we can have a number of sample lists that are all unique from each other. And we can see which sample list we have open if we look to the right, where it says default.spl. Now, this is okay because it's the first time we've opened up the software. We shouldn't have a project, and we shouldn't have a sample list made. But later we'll show that when we do open those, and these can change because we'll have different sample lists and different projects open. Now we can customize the way this sample list looks by right-clicking anywhere in this main screen and going down to Customize Display. Now the Customize Field Display window will open up, and you'll see a series of fields that you can check mark or uncheck whatever you want to see or what you don't want to see. I have a few things that I like to have in there, but it changes in every lab that you go to. You can move them by going up or down, and once you're done, you can click OK, and you'll see that this changes to exactly how you wanted it. You can resize these to make them all fit on one screen, or if you want to fit them to the name that's in there. But that's basically it for the general overview of the sample list. These bottom two windows are my queues, my acquisition queue and my process queue. When I'm acquiring data, this list will be populated with all of my sample list rows that are going to be run. On the right-hand side, if I were going to generate qualitative or quantitative data or get a report, this list will be populated from my sample list. And we'll see these two in action later when we actually acquire data and generate a report. Now the three red dots you shouldn't be alarmed by because these are just status symbols for our mass spec. Operate, pressure, and filament. If my mass spec is operational, if it's running, this will turn green. So the majority of the time when I'm sitting in my sample list, editing my fields and entering in what I want, this will be red. So you should get used to that. The pressure is what will usually be green the majority of the time. That means that my mass spec is under vacuum and it's at an operational status for my vacuum. My filament will most of the time remain red for the same reason that my operate will remain red. I'll be sitting in my sample list, editing fields, and this filament will not be on because I want to increase the lifetime of my filament. When I do turn that filament on, this will become green. Now I can check all of these again in my tune page window, which I can either go to my little glasses icon right here, or I can open it up out of my toolbar. And here you'll see the source parameters and the MS parameters for my mass spec. You'll see my pump gauge for my mass spec up here in TOR. This is where the spectra will show up, and this is where we'll check to see if we have a leak, or we'll check the actual calibration gas. But we'll do that later. We can open up our diagnostics tab, and we can see that what our turbo speed is if you have a turbomolecular pump. We can see what voltage I have going to my vacuum gauge, and we can see our reference voltages. The main things you're going to look at is the turbo speed. If you have a leak, this will probably be at 100, and you won't be getting to operational pressure. We can go back into our EI source tab. And I'm actually going to close this window out because we're going to go back into the sample list. Now we mentioned before that we don't have a GC on the left-hand side, we do have a mass spec. And the way to change this is we're going to Configure, Select Inlet Interface, and now the Select Inlet Interface window pops up, and we can select our front end to our GCMS. We can either choose None, which is the option we have right now where we don't have a GC configured over here. We'll go to Contact Closure, Auto System XL, Claris 500 or Claris 600. Depending on what you have on the front end of your GCMS, that's what you'll select as your inlet. And click OK. I have a 600, so that's what I'm going to choose. Now this will take a minute because it's going to verify communication between the GC and the computer. And then you'll see that in the left-hand side, I'll have a new window above my mass spec for my GC. So we'll just wait a second and all of this will go. Now you'll notice that we have a little instrument error window that popped up. It says the date and the time, and TurboMass did not detect any configured instrument. This is okay because we haven't told TurboMass what our instrument configuration is, what injectors we have, what detectors we have, if any, and what sort of pneumatics we have. So I'm going to close this out. In the top screen you'll notice that we have a new drop-down menu called GC. I'm going to open that up and I'm going to go to Configure. Now you'll see the configuration editor window has opened up, and in it, it has an instrument name. Now TurboMass can only be connected to one GCMS, so I'm not going to change the name of this instrument, which is Instrument 1. Instead, I'm going to go to the Instrument drop-down menu, go to Configure, and I'll select whichever COM port my instrument is connected to. In this case, it's connected to COM port 1. I'll select COM port 1, and I usually wait about 10 to 15 seconds for the GC to talk to the computer and back and forth. And then I'll query the port for type. And here I can see my firmware. I can see the version that I have. I can see all the information that I need to know that, yes, my GC is connected and communicating with my computer. So I'll click Continue. And for this, we're just going to go to Port A, and now I'm going to select the system once again that I'm using. In my case, I have a Claris 600 GC with a liquid auto sampler. Now I can select a 500 with an auto sampler, an auto system, a 600. All of these are available, but I'm using a 600, so that's what I'm going to select. Now once that's selected, I'm going to go to the Configure window, which I can select by going to the little push button right here. I'm going to leave all of this the way it is because I'm going to let the TurboMass software configure my instrument by talking back and forth with the GC. The GC has a .link box that will tell the computer what's connected to it. So now this will take a little bit of time and we'll just sit around, but once it's done, it only has to be done once. Now a series of windows are going to pop up, and we're just going to click Yes for everything. Because this is where the .link is going to talk to the computer, and it's going to tell it exactly what is in the configuration window, or what should be. Okay, do I want to confirm the configuration? Yes. Okay, that's saying the configuration that we entered, which we didn't enter anything in there, doesn't match what is really on the instrument. Do we want to update that? Yes. Okay. Now, you'll see that our instrument 1 is an auto system 600 with a liquid auto sampler. It's connected to COM port 1, and it's configured. And we'll see the configuration right here in the instrument configuration window. I only have one injector going to my GCMS. So all I have is a capillary injector with PPC going off helium, and I have an aux pressure if I was going to do a prevent. So I can go and I can exit out of this. And now you'll see our GC window. It has my oven temperature, my general status, and my GC status. Now if you're going to go and load a method onto your GC, or if you're going to update something, give it a few minutes to communicate. It's not in exactly real time. There's a little bit of delay between the communication between the instrument and the computer. So I'm going to go ahead and take control of my GC. So GC, take control. And now if I were to go to look at my touchscreen display on my GC, it would say external in the top left-hand corner.